special times. In 1993, I was Secretary Social Welfare in the state government, when the then Chief Secretary called me and said, Abhijit, can we give Manika Value Mansion to the NGM, to the Government of India, Ministry of Culture? Because Manika Value Mansion at that time housed the Department of Backward Classes and I think the Commission for Backward Classes and so on, Minorities Commission. And it was moving from it had to move from the state government to the center. And I said, sir, please, if you want any signature, I'll put it on record. So then in 2007, when I went, fortunately for me, when I was in Delhi and got posted in the Ministry of Culture, I found that the work hadn't yet got completed. It was my good fortune that during my time, the work did get completed. It's something which I think Bangalore can be proud of. We have started saying, when we were younger in Bangalore, we said, let's meet at Koshi's. Now, Koshi's is a good place, and we love Prem Koshi also, but we also now can say that let's meet at NGM. And I think that's important, because there are very few places. You have places in Mumbai, you have a couple of places in Delhi, but till now, there was no place where we could say, let's meet at in the city center. And I think NGMA has now become that, a symbol of our coming together for a cultural thinking, but a cultured thinking. And I think that's important, because Chiranjeev, who is an epitome of the culture, who symbolizes much of the cultural activity in Bangalore and has represented us at the UNESCO, and Sudhakar, who has, in fact, apart from heading the state government as the bureaucrat here, has been the head of the music, the School of Bangalore School of Music, and now of NGMA. These are people who I hope I'm sure will continue to keep us Bangaloreans happy about the activities in the field of culture. About this exhibition, obviously without Professor Shiv Kumar, who I think is, if there's anybody who knows the work of Rabindranath, he is the one man in India who understands, and I think we should give him a special hand for having done this. It's very, it's somewhat emotional for somebody who's originally a Bengali, now a Bangalorean, to be present at an occasion where Gurudev's work is being celebrated. The interesting thing is that it was when he was 70 years old, 69 or 70, that his work actually was exhibited first in Europe, I think around 1930. Later, Professor Shiv Kumar, and certainly tomorrow morning, he'll tell us all about it. But I thought I should just put it in one perspective that I saw. Much of his writing had been done. He was obviously a poet, a playwright. He wrote dance dramas. He wrote 8 novels, novellas, number of essays, some 84 short stories, some of which are absolutely amazing. And yet, as a painter, he wasn't comfortable himself when he tried it first. And then, I believe, when he went to Argentina, and it was there that Victoria Ocampo, perhaps the Bideshini that we heard about in the song today, she was a foreigner who covered his life in so many ways. And she, in fact, encouraged him and got his work exhibited in 1930, if I'm right, in Europe, in Paris. And that is when his greatness as also an artist was discovered by the world. I'm very happy that more than a year after the exhibition was curated and first shown to the world, we at NGMA, we in Bangalore have the privilege of seeing the last round of this exhibition. And I'm very happy that between NGMA, Delhi, Rajiv, who's worked at it over there and coordinated the whole thing administratively, and NGMA Bangalore, Mr. Kumar, we have the privilege of witnessing for the next few weeks the works of Rabindranath. I think it's an amazing effort put in by NGMA. Yesterday we had Homelands. Today we have the author or the writer of Ghare Baire, who is speaking to us through his work. Let us celebrate this occasion, and I must thank NGMA for giving me this opportunity to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks. This exhibition has been insightfully curated by Professor R. Shivakumar of Vishwabharati University. I now request Mr. Shivakumar to tell us more about this collection.
Sri Chiranjeev Singh Ji, Sri Abhijit Sengupta, Sri Sudhakar Rao, Professor Rajiv Lojan, Dr. K.G. Kumar, and the very distinguished audience of this evening. Rabindranath, as the previous speakers referred to, was a multifaceted genius who responded to his time and his challenges creatively. He was a poet, a novelist, a writer of short stories and plays, as we just heard. He was a composer of songs and an essayist. He wrote about 2,000 odd songs. And he was an essayist, a philosopher, and, of course, a painter. As a writer, he shaped modern Bengali literature and language and inspired writers in other Indian languages, perhaps as no other writer has done. Through his writings and plays, he connected his readers with the political and cultural issues of his time. Through his music, he connected his listeners to nature and their own inner world. And as an activist and educationalist, he tried to change the world itself. He left his mark on every aspect of our culture and was a great force in the cultural resurgence of India and in the shaping of its modernism. His works and ideas are still relevant to every one of us who is interested in humanity and in the destiny of man. Born into a very talented family, growing up in their midst was for Rabindranath an education and an inspiration to embark on his own creative life. He absorbed different aspects of culture and creative life from his elders and perfected them and turned them into instruments for the shaping of modern India and to open a discourse between modern India and the world. By the time he was 25, he was acknowledged as a new voice in literature, theatre, and music in Bengal, and a serious essayist and opinion maker. The only art that eluded him in these early years was painting. But he did not take his eyes away from painting, which did not yield to him at that time. He took an active part in shaping the new art scene in India and kept looking at painting and art in general from different world traditions and thinking about it. And finally, when he was in his mid-60s, to be 67 exactly, he found his way into painting. Over the next 13 years, he produced around 2,500 paintings and became not only a prolific artist, but one of the pioneers of modern Indian art. Rabindranath played a pivotal role in not only shaping Indian modernism, but also in bringing India closer to the world. And painting had a special place in this bridge building between cultures, to which he and his institutions was committed. While his creative work in other mediums, along with his engagements, social engagements with the world, belonged to the nationalist and pan-Asian phases. His painting belonged to the third and universalist phase of his work. His painting, thus more than his work in any other medium, was also molded by his interactions with the art world. Untrained in art, he found himself as a painter. By connecting the sense of graphic rhythm he acquired through the cultivation of the art of writing with the rhythmic articulation of forms he encountered in certain strands of Oriental, primitive, and Western art. The paintings included in this exhibition reflect 4 important aspects of his oeuvre. His first paintings grew out of the doodles he did in his manuscripts while attempting to turn crossed out words and discarded lines into visually exciting motifs. These have, like the doodles themselves, an element of playful inventiveness and involve morphological cross-projections that defy perceptual experience. If the subliminal played an important part in his first paintings, painting itself led him to pay attention to the pageant of forms in nature. The landscapes and flower paintings included in this exhibition are a token of this shift. As he progressed, he also began to see the human body not merely as form, but as gestures carrying within them the seeds of visual narration and theater. Ambivalent as these may remain, without the benefit of literary underpinnings or even names, I might say actually he exhibited these works without naming them. Of course, here the NGMA Bangalore has put some descriptive titles, but Rabindranath, when he showed these works, they were shown without names, and he refused to name them. So in fact, when we showed the works at the other avenues, we didn't actually use any titles. And these form a third group, which are more related to his work as a theater personality. And the fourth and final group are representations of the human face. And in terms of numbers, this is the largest number of thematically, this is the largest group in his work. And they hover between the hieratic mask and individualized portraits. They turn countenance into characters. Now, I might say a word about the title of this exhibition, why it is called The Last Harvest. Rabindranath began to paint, as I've said, only towards the end of his life, and thus painting was the last of the many art forms to become part of his rich creative life. He often used the word harvest in his poems and writings to refer to human destiny in general, as in his famous poem, The Golden Boat, in which the central image is that of a boat carrying away the writer's entire harvest. Using the same metaphor, he wrote again in 1928 when he was beginning his career as a painter, and I quote, "If I were a free agent, unburdened by care, I would leave on by the Padma." This is his favorite river on which he had this houseboat, which is also called Padma, and where he lived as a young man and wrote very memorable piece of literature. "And gather a harvest of pictures, and nothing but pictures to load the golden boat of time with. Thus, his paintings were to him his last harvest. The word last often brings to our mind images of an end. But for Rabindranath, the end was also celebratory culmination. According to the Bengali calendar, and of course, according to most of our Indian calendars, the year does not end in winter, but it ends in April, in spring. And Rabindranath reminds us of this in a poem called The Last Honey, where he says the year as she leaves, she gives us a lot of parting gifts, and it is a time of gift giving. Similarly, these paintings are his parting gifts, and they invoke both a sense of parting as well as a sense of fullness. And I hope the viewers of this exhibition will experience both. It has been a great privilege to be called upon to curate this traveling exhibition of Rabindranath's paintings, but it would not have been possible without the initiative taken by the Ministry of Culture and the liberal permissions that Vishwabharati and NGMA gave me by opening up the collections and giving me a free hand in choosing what I wanted. And also, it would not have been possible without the support given by the designers of the exhibition, Ramanathan, to whom Rajiv had referred, and also without the efforts that were put in by Rajiv Lojan and his team in Delhi, and by the host museums to where we went, here Dr. Kumar and his team in Bangalore. So what you see is essentially a group effort, and I personally owe a lot to all these people. I also hope all of you will enjoy our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your thoughts on the phases and the groupings in the collection, as well as the story behind the title. We look forward to your talk tomorrow. May I now request Sri Sudhakar Rao, former Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka, and the Chairman of the Advisory Committee, NGMA Bangalore, to say a few words.
A very good evening to you, and a very hearty welcome to NGMA Bangalore. First of all, Chiranjeev and Abhijit, thank you so much for being here with us. I was about to say that each time I'm given an opportunity to speak, whatever has to be spoken on the subject is already been spoken. Then realize that Chiranjeev is following me, and I'm certain that in his 10 minutes of talk, he will bring out facets about Rabindranath Tagore that most of us did not know. But I really took up this podium only to thank curator Shiv Kumar, and more than that, Professor Rajiv Lojan, for having enabled this exhibition, this collection, to come to Bangalore. I have, of course, seen one half of this in Mumbai when I went for the same show which was hosted in NGMA Mumbai, where again Rajiv Lojan and Shiv Kumar were present. But clearly this is a labor of love, a matter of great passion for Rajiv, because while he did narrate the kind of trials and tribulations that he faced in putting this thing together, there's much more to the story, and I think one day he should sit down and tell us all about how this collection was brought together. From the point of view of NGMA Bangalore, once again I make my sales pitch to Mr. Kumar and his team. I think you should make special efforts to reach out to the schools here, schools and colleges, and bring them here so that they can see what Gurudev had to offer, even as for those fond of visual arts, not just music and writing. And I'm sure there'll be a great response from the schools if you tell them that such and such exhibition is there. Meanwhile, all I can say is I'm overwhelmed by the response to this evening's event. Just shows how much regard, affection we have for every work of Rabindranath Tagore. thanks once again to Shiv Kumar and Rajiv Lochan for having brought this together. We'll now wait to hear what Chief Guest Chiranjeev Singh has to tell us, and maybe conclude the evening with some more of those lovely Rabindra Sangeet, and I see some artists have already been assembled there. So we have a very rich evening of, what should I say, specifically Bengali, but otherwise global art and entertainment before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We look forward to your continued guidance and suggestions in the future endeavors of NGMA. We are delighted to have with us Mr. Chiranjeev Singh, an ardent art lover, as our chief guest. Mr. Chiranjeev Singh needs no introduction. May I please invite you, sir, to say a few words on this occasion.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. At last, the long-awaited exhibition is here. We have been waiting for this for the last 2 years. It was supposed to be part of the 150th birthday celebrations of Gurudev Tagore, and at last the exhibition is here. Sudhakar said that something new probably would be said by me, but there is very little new that one can say about a figure like Shakespeare or Goethe or Tagore. And Tagore certainly stands alongside Goethe, who was also a painter, incidentally, and a good painter, and Michelangelo, who was a good poet. His sonnets are quite moving, in fact. These people, they are known to all of you. There's nothing one can say about them which is new. I am reminded of what Acharya Hazari Prasad Dwivedi wrote about in one of his essays about Tagore. Acharya ji was at Shantiniketan, and he was like an adopted son to Tagore, because he was a teenager when Tagore picked him up from the ghats of Banaras and took him to Shantiniketan. And he writes that वैशाख की कड़ी धूप में मैं